believe it's draw 14 overall. We're into the championship and seeding pools right now. And just a little clarification, it's a bit of a different setup here at this event. Once they go through the initial round robin, which ended last night, then they go into what they call the championship pool and the seeding pool. And, of course, the championship pool, the top 8 teams on the women's and men's side move forward, and then the bottom teams play in the seeding pool, which will rank seeding for next year. And the records of all these teams overall will actually set the seedings at the Nationals for next year. But the other thing to keep in mind is that the records from the round robin portion that ended yesterday actually carry over into this round. So, for example, on the Curling Canada website, it's a really good site to go to. You want to go visit curling.ca and check out scores for the Everest Senior Canadian Curling Championship. And I'll give you an example here. The seedings in the seeding pool, again, these are teams that didn't make it to the championship round, but their records carry over. So Quebec is 3-3, Northern Ontario 2-4, Yukon 2-4, New Brunswick 1-5, and the two teams we're featuring here now. And again, this is to set seedings for next year's championship. Nunavut, skipped by Edmund Saddleberger, and Northwest Territories, skipped by Glenn Hudy, both looking for their first victory. So again, this will determine seeding for next year, and it's important to both of these teams as well. You know, they're here, they're enjoying themselves, they're having a good time, but it's nice to be able to put a win or two under your belt at a national championship. And both of these teams now, Glenn Hudy's Northwest Territory side and Edmund Saddleberger's Nunavut team, have the opportunity to do that. And getting back to the championship pool, you know, Nova Scotia lost, O'Leary losing to Height from Saskatchewan, but O'Leary now at 6-1. So that loss, while not great for Nova Scotia and really good for Saskatchewan, doesn't hurt Nova Scotia initially, because in the championship pool, the team's record carries over and they play 4 more games. So technically, Nova Scotia, for example, could end up going 9-1. So still having a chance to get into the championship round on Saturday, where after this championship pool, 1 will play 4, 2 will play 3, and then the winners of those 2 will go on and meet in the championship game on Saturday. So lots going on, lots of curling, but honestly, the best thing to do, visit curling.ca, go to the link for the Everest Canadian Senior Curling Championship, and the standings are there, the records are there, all of the information that you need right there. And I know Robin from Curling Canada has been doing a great job updating all of the scores, and I tease her about having her laptop open so late into the evening still inputting stuff, but they're doing a great job, and that's the best thing to do. All of the records and stats all updated there on curling.ca, and I actually tweeted it out and sent it out on my Facebook page as well. Joined on the broadcast here by Murray Skaman from Manitoba. Murray was with us earlier in the week and had a little time to join us. Murray, welcome to the broadcast.
Thanks a lot. Pleasure to be here.
Nice to have you alongside. Always nice to have someone that knows the game from a inside-out perspective and can talk about some of the nuances. And as well, nice to have that extra voice as well, so I can spend a little extra time chewing on my fisherman's friend. So this Nunavut team, skipped by Edmund Saddleberger, Their vice is Dennis Masson. Chris West throws second, and Lloyd Kendall throws lead rock for the Northwest Territories. Skip Glenn Hudy. Vice Brian Kelly, Ben McDonald is the second, and Richard Klakowicz throws lead rock. So Nunavut throwing the yellow rocks here in this game, and Northwest Territory throwing red. And we see some rocks in play early on here. And you know, Murray, you've curled in different events. What does it mean for these teams? Yes, they're not in the championship round now; they're playing for seedings. But you know, what would it mean to these teams to be able to at least put 1 win under their belt at a national championship?
Oh, getting a win's always important, and it's important for next year if they're coming back, or whoever's coming back, to to help seat them in a better position. So they're going to give it their best here. It's just not a fun game. They're going to go for this win.
So, individual pride, team pride, and provincial or territory pride always comes to the surface in situations like this. And I'm sure that won't be any different here between these two teams. And I guess the other thing is, too, is that, we talk about provincial rivalries. There's some rivalry amongst the territories as well. So we got two territory teams playing here with Nunavut and the Northwest Territories. So a battle for northern supremacy, if you will.
That's for sure. And I imagine these guys have played one another before, being that close in location.
So we see that Nunavut Rock go all the way through the house, leaving that red Northwest Territory stone sitting right there. And you see Glenn Hootie calling out what he wants. And the game that we had earlier here on this sheet between BC and Alberta on the men's side, a game eventually won by BC. Those were two teams that every end, they were just putting all kinds of rocks in play, and it made every end really, really interesting.
Fantastic games to watch. There was 3 games going there that were just super. Right to the last rock, it was really good curling.
So early stages here of this first end. This men's game between the Northwest Territories and Nunavut, part of the seeding pool. And of course, as we've mentioned, this will go toward determining where these teams will be seated at next year's championship. Over on our feature game on sheet D, we've got Jim Nix joining us, and he's doing the men's game between Northern Ontario and Team New Brunswick on the men's side, a men's seeding pool game there as well. So great to have Jim Nix joining us on the mic over on sheet D, and again here on sheet B. Our feature game is this seeding pool game with the Northwest Territories taking on Nunavut. And early end action here. Just the one, or a couple of guards, I guess, out front, then another Northwest Territory guard off to the side, and then just the one rock to speak of there at the feet of the skip Glenn Hootie. So I guess, Murray, from a strategy point of view as well, you always want to win, but when you know that you're not through to the championship portion and you're playing for seeding, does it take a little bit of the pressure off, and does it make you maybe more willing to call a risky shot?
Oh, absolutely. Getting rid of some of that pressure is so nice. They're going to be a little more relaxed in this. They're probably going to make some good shots here.
So we see this offering from Hootie's side come down, and sitting in behind that high guard up front. So we see Edmund Saddleberger. So you see Ed's call there. So your best guess, what's his play here?
I think he's going to try and do a little tap and roll here. You caught me looking at a different sheet there when you asked me.
That's all right.
I need to pay attention here, I guess.
Dennis Masson with the shot, and right through the middle. That's unfortunate outcome there for Dennis Masson. Gentleman born in Souris, Manitoba. Interesting as well, this Nunavut team. When I called their game the other day, I almost referred to them a couple of times as Newfoundland and Labrador because I was down chatting to them prior to their draw when we covered them the other day. And the front end of this team, Lloyd Kendall, originally from Ramia by way of Burgeo, and Chris West, the second, from Buckins. So I had a good chat to them about Newfoundland and Labrador. I am originally from St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador. So it was great chatting to the whole team, but certainly had a few laughs with the fellow Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. And it was funny, I a couple of times I almost referred to them as Newfoundland and Labrador.
And we got a couple of Manitoba boys here. One's just a few miles south of me, and the other one's in northern Manitoba where I go fishing.
That's right. Dennis Masson, as mentioned, from Souris, Manitoba, and the skip of Nunavut, Edmund Saddleberger from Flin Flon. You see the Northwest Territories now leaning into this, trying to bring it over, and it'll sit as almost a center line guard, pretty much protecting that center portion of the ice. So Saddleberger and Masson talking things over. And I had a nice opportunity as well yesterday to talk to both of the teams from Nunavut, the men's team and the women's team. And we had a real good chat. They were talking to me, and I was asking them about their coat of arms because I really like it. And the two animals on the coat of arms, because I asked them, I said, what exactly are those? The two animals on the coat of arms, one is a caribou and the other is a narwhal. Here's a good look at it right there, which I thought was interesting. And they were talking to me a little bit about the language of the Inuit up from that area, the native Inuit of northern part of Canada. And they were also very nice enough to give me some really cool pins to take home to my daughter. My daughter, Sophia, she's 10, and she loves it when I bring kind of any kind of knick-knack or memento home from events like this. So that was kind of neat.
I actually worked up there in the early 80s, and it's a fantastic country. The northern lights up there are spectacular. It's hard to describe how they can move, and they look like you can almost reach up and touch them, and they're jumping all over the sky. It's just a great sight. I recommend anybody to go see that. It's something else.
Yeah, I've heard people say that it's probably one of the most remarkable things and a true wonder of nature. It was funny. I heard a couple of people asking a couple of the teams from up north, so what's it like up there, Because I think it was actually one of the folks selling the 50-50 tickets. They were just, making a little small talk and, what's it like? What's the temperature like compared to here? And I think collectively about 6 of them looked up and said, cold.
Yes, it's very cold up there. I had a 3-week spell up there where the mercury didn't come out of the little ball in the bottom of the thermometer, and I think if you had stood a broom handle up beside it, it would have went down the broom handle. It was so cold.
Oh my gosh.
It was below 50 below.
Wow. And safe to say a hardy group of folks.
Yes, indeed.
Living up north. It's funny though, anybody that you talk to from up there, they love it. Even the two gentlemen, Lloyd Kendall and Chris West, from Newfoundland and Labrador that are living up there, they just rave about how beautiful it is up there and just how wonderful the country is.
I've never seen it in the summertime. The wintertime is very nice, but summertime, I imagine, is really, really nice. They're working on a big end here. They got 3 in there now with hammers, so this could get interesting here. This next shot's going to tell a tale.
So, Northwest Territories throwing the Red Rocks. Have 3 in play. Edmund Saddleberger will make his way down here as we're into Skip Stones.
I'm sorry, Territories don't have a hammer.
It's all right. You're allowed 1 mistake per day. That's it for you.
Well, yeah. My wife told me I already made one today, so I guess I'm in trouble.
Well, now that's from a broadcasting perspective now. It's right. It's a different. I already made mine right off the bat. First thing this morning. I did the same thing.
That just makes my day. I know I can do another one.
Oh, I mistakenly did the same thing with the hammer. So you're once you put the headset on, you sit on the broadcast. Everything else it gets erased. So that 1 mistake earlier with your wife, that doesn't even count. So Nunavut trying to draw in against those 3 Northwest Territory Rocks, and this doesn't look like it's going to work out so well for Saddleberger as it's a steal of 3. Yeah, no question that
3 points, yes.
Those 3 Red Rocks are the closer. They're taking a close look. You see Brian Kellen in there, but I don't think there's... Oh, they're going to measure. Well, again, I guess...
Camera angles must be...
Yeah, deceiving to the eye.
Would this be your 1 mistake that you can take?
Well, no, this would be about 7 for me today.
So you're over the deep end.
I've gone off the deep end, and I'm still falling down the rabbit hole. But no, and the team from 45 North have done an absolutely wonderful job here because this arena very difficult to be able to get an overhead look. And they actually had a truss installed to be able to get the camera looks with robotic cameras that we are getting. So they've actually really raised the bar here for this webcast, but we don't have that very overhead look just because of the way the beams are set up here in this building. But a couple of times it's been deceiving with angle, and another case there. So there's that measurement. You know, I joked earlier, Murray, that I hadn't seen it all week, and this is back-to-back games that they've had to measure.
There have been quite a few measurements lately.
So now when they move, do they typically move the one that scores or the one that's further away?
They usually point at the one that was shot, and I didn't just catch what they called there.
Neither did I. I didn't even see the person with the measurement, because usually the person that measures will be the one that will make the call and then move the stone or what have you. So a question now, was it a steal of 2 or was it a steal of 3? You and I think both initially jumped right on there and said that's 3. But it was, again, just the camera angle not telling the true tale. And Northwest Territories went over and looked, and it was Brian Callan, I believe, the vice for Northwest Territories, that called for that measurement. So, again, we'll just wait for the official call here from the scorekeeper. And once they put that number up on the board, we'll get it updated for you. Regardless, though, it is a steal for the Northwest Territories in this end. So a big first end for Glenn Hootie and his Northwest Territory side.
We got a couple of ladies games going out here too, on Northern Ontario and Manitoba, and Alberta and Prince Edward Island. Alberta trying to keep their record going the way it's going. They're doing very well this week.
So Nunavut falling behind early here after one end. And again, we're just waiting for the official update on the score. There was a question on one rock. There was a measurement. And they didn't really indicate to us on the broadcast side what the official call was. So we're just waiting on the manual scoreboard ice level to be updated. Whether it's 2 or 3.
It'll probably be 2. Yeah.
And there it is. Boy, that was very prophetic words from you. As our director, Chuck Calder, updating that right as the words come out of your mouth. So it is a steal of 2. So we move on now to the second end. Nunavut will maintain the hammer and try to go to work. Both these teams looking for their first victory of this senior championship. On the seeding pool side, right now, Quebec would be 1, Northern Ontario 2, Yukon 3, New Brunswick 4, and Nunavut and Northwest Territories tied for 5th. So again, a lot at stake here in this game as these teams look to get a win under their belt and maybe a couple of more in the seeding pool. And it was interesting talking to Jim Nix, the gentleman who's doing the call for us on our feature game Sheet D. I was kind of talking to him about the setup here and the way they do it, because it's the first time I've kind of seen this original round robin and then a championship round robin, if you will, where your record from the typical round robin carries over. And he said basically it's something that they brought in a couple of years ago because just they had so many teams to deal with at the Nationals, 14 teams, 13, 14 teams, and very difficult to get everybody playing everybody in a round robin. So I guess the folks involved at the national level came together and thought that the best way to do it would be to have that round robin and then have your seedings 1 through 8 on the women's and men's side. They would then go on to what they're calling the championship pool, where these records carry over. And the same thing, the bottom teams would go into the seeding pool. Their records would carry over. All of those records would count towards the seedings for next year. And then they would go from the championship pool into a top 4, and then 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3. Those 2 winners play for gold. So it's a lot of curling, and it's a little tricky to follow in terms of making sure that you've got all the standings right and that the head-to-head tiebreakers and things are worked out. But they've done a great job here, the officials behind the scenes, working late into the night and even this morning before the morning draw, getting all of the matchups on paper and getting the schedule to us. And it's a lot of scheduling to do. You've got to get all those teams worked out, the 1 through 8 for the championship and then the bottom portion for seeding. Then you've got to get their sheets all scheduled. And so a lot of work goes on behind the scenes here, and approximately 150 volunteers coming together to make all of this happen. A lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that you don't even see when you're watching these games.
Oh, that's for sure. There's a lot of stuff to figure out. Just for an example, there was a 3-way tie between Manitoba, BC, and Prince Edward Island in the ladies. And they had identical records. Win-losses were all the same. And it came down to their draw to the button for hammers, what determined that. And Prince Edward Island advanced and the other 2 fell back. So there is a lot of stuff to figure out, and this is a different format, but it must be working because they're using it.
Absolutely, and everybody seems to be okay with it. And I guess the thing is, it applies to everybody equally. So it's not like you really get an advantage, over another team. If you get on and run and you're playing well, you'll be rewarded.
I didn't realize that the record advanced with you, and I'm going to have to analyze that for a little while to determine whether I like it or not. But it must be all right.
Well, it's basically, I guess, an elongated round robin is really what it is.
It is, yes.
And I guess the other side of it, and you and I were kind of chatting about this between draws, is that a lot of championships now use the page playoff system where the top 4 teams play, 1 plays 2, 3 plays 4. And then if the 1-2, if you lose that game, you're not done.
No, you get to drop down and play the winner of 3-4, which gives you another chance, which is nice. But here, if you lose your 1-2 game, you're done.
Yeah, so compared to the page playoff system, the system they're using here, technically you could go through the first round robin and then the championship pool undefeated and go into the 1-2 game, for example, and if you lose there, your 1 loss sends you home.
That's right. That can be a little disheartening, especially if the team that beat you, they could have had, 3-4 losses and still beat you in that 1 game and you're done.
I guess the old adage, I think it was at Barnum and Bailey, said you can please some of the people all of the time and all of the people some of the time, but
that's right.
Rare to please everybody all the time. So I guess they try to come up with a system that works well, and there may be some that like it, some that are a little, I don't know if I like this so much, but hard to please everybody, especially when you're dealing with so many teams from right across the country. But I guess at the end of the day, if the tournament rules apply to everybody, then everybody has to deal with it fairly. First time I've had a chance to see this Northwest Territories team up close. The Glen Hootie Rink. Glenn from Yorkton, Saskatchewan, and Brian Kellen, the vice from Regina, Saskatchewan, and then Ben McDonald, the second from Paris, Ontario. And the lead, Richard Klakowicz from Edmonton, Alberta. So a lot of good Western representation on these 2 teams from up north. So we got a pretty good melting pot of provinces here. We've got Newfoundland and Labrador represented, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Ontario, and Alberta.
There is quite a spread on those, isn't there?
Coast to coast, pretty much.
So Ed's wanting them to draw one right down in there, right on the can there. There's lots of backing if you can get through that port.
So Dennis Masson with the shot. You see the front end there of Kendall and West, the 2 Newfoundlanders working it hard. And he just rubs off that guard in front. And now the shooter will roll right out the back. So not the result that Masson wanted there. And it wasn't for lack of trying on the front end of sweeping from Kendall and West. Something else we've noticed here today as well, Murray, was that the big swing that we've seen here and that you were talking about the other day seems to have lessened somewhat here on the draws on this Thursday.
I actually just sat down with the ice maker and was talking to him about that, and he says right now it's pretty good. The rain, there's no more rain outside, and everything is straightened up pretty good. When we had the rain and the high humidity, we get frost, and the rocks will slide down, and they're looking good, and they'll just bite in and stop on you, and catches you off guard pretty quick as to when they're going to stop. But tonight they seem to be moving pretty good. There is rain in the forecast for tomorrow, and they're prepared to deal with it. And they're doing something different here that I hadn't seen before. They pebble before they do their main scrape, and that pebble draws the frost out of the ice. And they said they sometimes will do this 5 times before they do their final one. And they'll just keep pebbling and scraping, and it draws all the frost out. It's a pretty good idea. Makes sense when you think about it.
As I see this shot from from Northwest Territories, come down and sit right there. And this end again shaping up more so right now, at least in favor of the Northwest Territories. And maybe we'll talk more about that ice making and upkeep between ends, because I noticed actually something just to further that point there, kind of interesting when I was watching between draws when they were resurfacing the ice. We'll get to that a little more in detail in a few minutes, but we'll get focusing in here.
Port he's going to try and throw through.
So there you see what Ed Saddleberger has to deal with here. A whole lot of red staring him in the face. So he's going to try and come through that opening between those two reds either side of that center line. And that's a pretty specific shot to try and make.
This is where you'd want to have one of them junior rocks maybe to go through there. little more narrow, not quite as wide. Well, there's the front end working on again. He's going to be on that guard. He's going to wreck on that and go right out the other side. So he went for that opening. Tough shot to make, and those red Northwest Territory rocks, just a little too much to deal with for Saddleberger on that one. And now Glenn Hootie, after stealing 2 in the first, trying to really put Saddleberger up against it here in the second end. He's thinking about throwing up one more guard here to make sure they can't come in from the wide side and swoop into the button. He's going to make it pretty tough for them here.
Well, we've seen the Northwest Territories in both ends here really putting rocks in play and putting pressure squarely on the shoulders of Ed Saddleberger and this Nunavut side. So we will see what Hootie has to offer here. His final rock for the Northwest Territories in this second end. One more to come before we see what the result is. Klakowicz and McDonald. A little bit of directional brushing there. Very quiet wait. Kellen comes in now, and he'll take it the rest of the way. Trying to clog up that little opening there between the two guards that are just a little bit deeper. And he'll sit right there. Great to be able to bring this 2016 Everest Canadian Curling Championship Senior Edition to you. Scott Squires along with Murray Skaman bringing you men's seeding pool action here. Second draw of the day, 14th draw overall at this championship. You see Saddleberger checking a little pick in the ice there, and now he'll get a little help as Lloyd Kendall will come out just to brush that over. Excited as well to be bringing you the Pro-Am event on Saturday, the Everest Furby National Pro-Am. And you do not want to miss that. That's going to be a fun event. We'll have that for you live on Bella Line TV1 Saturday afternoon, 12 o'clock noon Atlantic time. So Saddleberger trying a little different tact here. And he's coming down with it, almost walking with it all the way. He's around the guard.
Just a little bit short on weight there. I think he would have had okay line if he had another 6 feet of weight, 8 feet of weight.
Short on weight indeed, and it would look to be a steal of 3 in that end. They don't waste any time clearing those rocks out of there. I was still counting, and they were kicking rocks out of the way. So
probably one of them wasn't happy.
So, Northwest Territories, a good start here for the Hootie Rink, as they've put 5 on the board through 2 ends, and they lead 5-0. That'll keep the hammer with Saddleberger and, pardon me, Nunavut. But a difficult start here for the gentleman from Nunavut. Bell Alliance is proud to be the official broadcaster of the 2016 Everest Canadian Senior Curling Championships, live from the Digby Arena and the Digby Curling Club, located in lovely Digby, Nova Scotia. Bell Alliance, there's more to love with fiber op. Lloyd Kendall from Ramia.
Territory slid a little deep on that first shot there, so maybe that's going to give them something to work with here. Going to throw a guard up and then come in.
No brush put to this one at all. I'll just watch it sail in. And it'll sit right there, top of the tee line in the 4.
Being in the house now, they can play that rock. Game plan has changed.
Yeah, and that's the thing with the 4 rock rule. If one of the early rocks goes into the rings, all bets are off. You can just start throwing them in there.
Yeah, it kind of wrecks an end. You got to change your plan when that happens.
And they peel out that yellow Nunavut stone, and the shooter will roll over to the side. So Northwest Territories sitting 2 here in this second end.
They are both behind the tee line, so there is something to work for these guys. They can use them.
Well, see, there you go. I thought they stole 3, and apparently it was only 2.
You're kind of using your wrong things up.
Yeah,
aren't
you know what? I'm
like
not going to say a word. I'm not even going to assume anymore. They're kicking those rocks out of the way before I'm getting a chance to count them up and see what's what. So I'll just follow along from.
I was behind you on that 3, so you weren't alone on that one.
Well, thank you very much, Murray. I don't feel so bad. Maybe unless it's like 99.999% to 100% sure, I'll just wait until our director Chuck sees the manual score get updated, and once he chucks the number up there, pardon the pun, I'll hold off my professing of how many points have been scored.
Unless we can get a team member to give us some fingers up here, but sometimes we wouldn't like that finger that's coming.
Yeah, yeah, we might not want to see a 1 scored very often, if you know what I'm saying. And it's funny, there was a team the other day, and a women's team, and it was great. After every end, one of the players would hold up fingers of how many points were scored one way or the other, and it was all I did was watch, and it was great.
Yeah, that helps out.
So I had a little help.
She must have been feeling for you.
Well, it must have been. It made me look great, because almost before the last rocket even stopped spinning, I was like, hey, there's a steal of 2.
Yep, right on.
Now today, on the other hand, I appear to be completely inept at counting up rocks. Here's Chris West. Great guy to chat with. Had a little chat with him the other day over a bowl of seafood chowder here at the Everest Patch. Good shot there by Chris as he takes out the Northwest Territories red, and shooter hangs around right where you see it. Play into the third end. Back-to-back steals of 2 for the Northwest Territories, and they've got a 4-0 lead.
So which town do the Territories play out of? What's their rank?
They play out of Iqaluit.
Iqaluit.
And the... Did you say Northwest Territories or Nunavut? Northwest Territories, they play out of the Yellowknife Curling Club.
They're out of Yellowknife.
And Nunavut is out of the Iqaluit Curling Club. So here's West with his second. Masson and Kendall providing the brushing. Pretty vigorous brushing now, keeping it on line. And just gets a tick on it, and he will take it back. So pretty clear end going here now. No guards in play, just that one Northwest Territories rock sitting where you see it. So maybe things shaping up a little better here for the Northwest Territories. Excuse me, for Nunavut in this third end. We are in men's seeding pool action here. Both of these teams looking for their first victory at this 2016 Everest Canadian Senior Curling Championship. This one might have a little too much weight. Saddleberger, well, just put a brush to it just to make doubly sure. And it does indeed go out the back, so misread on the weight there. And that miss from the Territories helps out Nunavut. Our feature game on sheet D with Jim Dix, Northern Ontario leading New Brunswick by a score of 4-0 as well. So a couple of 4-0 games going on Bella Line TV1 here. Just past 1 p.m., 1:05 to be exact, Atlantic time here in Digby, Nova Scotia, the last day of March. And now, I'm not sure, but I'm not sure if he's expanded yet out to Western Canada, but I know he's picking up traction around the world. Frankie McDonald. Have you heard about Frankie McDonald?
I think you better fill me in on this.
Well, Frankie McDonald is a amateur meteorologist, I guess you could say, weatherman, prognosticator, and he lives in Cape Breton, which is northern part of Nova Scotia, Cape Breton Island. And Frankie, for years, has been doing YouTube videos doing weather forecasts. And it's gotten to the point where Frankie's weather forecasts are actually sometimes more accurate than the actual meteorologists and weather forecasts that we watch on our own local news. And he's gathered quite a following. I mean, he's been on the Ellen Show, he's been on radio shows throughout the United States, and he really does have quite a following. They've made bobblehead dolls on him. And all you need to do, go to YouTube and do a search for Frankie McDonald weather. Now, I mentioned Frankie McDonald because he's pretty darn accurate, and apparently he's released his latest YouTube weather video, and it's predicting a major snowstorm in this region on Tuesday.
Well, I thought you were going to say in Western Canada because we got one at home last night.
Oh, is that right? How much?
About 4 inches we picked up, and it was pretty nice at home. There was no snow. It was actually looking pretty good. My daughter sent me a text this morning with a picture of it. I'm glad I'm here.
Well, and you might be getting, depending on when you're heading back home, you might be getting out of Dodge, as they say, ahead of a potential storm being predicted by the Cape Breton weather prognosticator, Frankie McDonald.
I'm going to have to check this guy out. This could be.
Oh, he is a treat. He's a lot of fun, I'll tell you. So we'll see. And the funny thing about, I'm not sure if it's the same out west, but here in Atlantic, Canada, when you get to this time of year, there's absolutely no panic at all when they predict a snowstorm. The reason being is that, oh, you know what? It'll rain in a couple of days and all the snow will be gone anyway.
Yeah.
Whereas if you get a storm predicted in sometime in January or March, everybody goes into panic mode, and you're building shelters, and you're going to the supermarket, and you're stocking up on food.
In Manitoba, we have quite a time trying to figure out our weather because we have the Rocky Mountains to the west of us, so it can change pretty quick. What the weatherman predicts is maybe not even close sometimes. Just those mountains kind of throw a screw into things.
Now, I know this year, there's been talk about the big El Nino. That was one of the biggest El Nino in record, and it was causing a lot of warm temperatures, a very mild winter across Canada. I know certainly in Atlantic Canada, an extremely mild winter, not much snow at all. And I mean, compared to last year, which set records in some areas like Prince Edward Island, 180-degree difference. But out west, has it been as mild? Has it had an effect out there? Because I know sometimes you get the Chinook, which can kind of change it quickly, but then it goes back. But what's it been like overall out there?
Oh, we had a super winter. We only had 4 or 5 days in total all winter that were ugly. It was a super winter. Not much snow, great temperatures. And if that's global warming, I'll keep her. It's good for me. I like that. That not shoveling snow, that's a plus when it's 30 below.
Well, I will say, after last year, the snow banks and the difficulty driving almost through snow tunnels, this year kind of was a nice switch.
And we were the same last year, too. The coldness never let up. Ooh, we didn't get that one to stick.
He did not, and it goes out the back, so kind of a mishmash of ends here. We've had some ends where we've had all kinds of rocks in play and real groupings of rocks in the rings. In this particular end, as you see, everything on the outside around the perimeter of the 12-foot. So we're in the third end here. Northwest Territories having success on the steel side of things, stealing 2 in the first, 2 more in the second. Nunavut with the hammer here would love to get a couple of points on the board and change the momentum here a little bit in this one.
So he's going to throw one in there, and he's going to try and tuck it in behind and maybe steal one. But if they do get to it and force him to take one, he still retains the hammer. So he has a lot of different options here. And we got the girls on the the Manitoba, Northern Ontario. They're looking at 2 rocks, trying to figure whether they should measure. Now that's second measurement in this draw already.
It was a great throw. Nice effort. I just think that you needed to go.
So after this end, I'll do a quick update of the scores on the men's side. In this game, Ed Saddleberger and Nunavut looking to get on the board here with the hammer in the third end, trying to climb back into this one and not let the Northwest Territories run away with it. Saddleberger down that center line, and no.
Well, he was just blanking that to retain hammer.
Ah, okay, that was last rock. My apologies.
Yeah, I thought Territories had put one in there, but they didn't apparently.
No, I'm not going to say a word. I'm not going to say, you sure that was a blank?
Well, I was looking at the wrong sheet at the time, too. I was checking out the ladies' measurement over there to see who won that, and I missed that, too, so I'm bad.
Well, the manual scorekeeper must be feeling for me.
Yes.
Because he got those double zeros. Yeah, he got those double zeros up real quick.
Yeah.
So it is a blank for Saddleberger. Not a bad play. The end didn't shape up the way that he wanted. And, I guess he's figuring down by 4. Why bother taking a single point and giving the hammer right back to your opponent? So he blanks it, and now we'll take the hammer into 4. And hopefully he'll be able to tack on a couple of points here and then go into the fourth end break with something positive to talk about and then regroup and come out in the second half here and see if he can change the momentum even further. But we'll just recap Some of the scores for you here on the men's side. Of course, our game 4-0 here in the fourth end. Over on sheet D, Northern Ontario and New Brunswick. Latest update we have on Curling Canada is 4-0 with play going into the third end. Yukon Territory and Quebec 2-1. Quebec leading that one in the third end as well. See if I can get, as we carry on here, see if I can get the women's scores for you. Let's take a second to update here as we watch Lloyd Kendall's shot. And the guard put up there by Team Nunavut. On the women's side, we've got PEI and Alberta. 2-1 Alberta there in the third end. Northern Ontario leading Manitoba 2-1 in the third end. And Newfoundland and Labrador exchanging 3 spots. And they are tied, Newfoundland and Labrador and Saskatchewan, tied 3-3 in the third end.
That's going to be a good game. Big hands already, though. Wow.
Yeah, three in the first for Newfoundland and Labrador and 3 in the second for Saskatchewan.
These curlers are getting a lot of games and they're going to be played out. I was talking to Ed Lukowicz. He went and competed in the seniors in Alberta to get primed up for the Masters and end up winning the seniors. So he did 13 games there and then 13 more in the Masters. And he comes here and has to curl all these games and then heads off to the Masters after this.
Wow.
He's going to be a tired puppy when he's done.
That's a lot of curling.
That's more than most people curl in a year.
And in a situation like that, I mean, there's got to be a fatigue factor that comes in.
I would think so.
Mentally and physically.
Yeah.
So we see in this end now, just that one Redstone from the Northwest Territory sitting at the top of the 12 and then a guard on the end in the Bell Alliant logo, just in that 4-foot zone, just above the 12-foot. So we'll do our best to keep you updated now on the scores in the women's and the men's draws here. Draw 14 on day 4 of this event. Only a couple of days left after today. Before you know it, we'll be crowning a champion on both the men's and women's side. And of course, we'll have those games for you live on Bell Alliant TV1, as well as the Everest Furby National Pro-Am coming your way live at noon on Saturday. So Bell Alliant TV1 bringing you all of the action here from the Digby Area Recreation Commission and the Digby Arena, Digby Curling Club. Scott Squires alongside Marie Skaman. Glad to have you here. We're on sheet B for this men's seeding pool action between Northwest Territories and Nunavut. And you see the score in behind, 4-0, Northwest Territories leading. Nunavut blanking 3 and has the hammer here in 4.
It looks like the Territories have really found their weight. They're just burying them right in there. They're throwing very good draw weight.
And peeling off that high red rock from the Territories. That must be a nice feeling, you know, when you get in the zone, so to speak, when you settle into the hack and you just feel so confident about your weight. It must make the game flow so much easier.
Oh, it takes a lot of pressure off. Everything gets rolling your way, and you keep the other ones trying to play offense, and you can play a little defense. It's a pretty nice feeling.
Territories now looking to keep that pressure on. And they peel off that guard. The shooter will roll out the back. And we're left with no guards in play, and that one red Territory stone that you see now just in front of and now behind the Nunavut skip, Ed Saddleberger. Thursday afternoon here. in Digby, Nova Scotia.
On an intern hit roll.
So there's Chris West, the second for this Nunavut team. Leans onto that stabilizer as he lets the shot go. Became a regular curler, my first purchase would be a stabilizer. That would be very helpful for me. Such an evolution, though, in the game over the last couple of years, not only with the rules, but with the equipment as well.
It's really changed the brooms, the sliding material that they're using. You see all kinds of stuff. Old straw brooms they're still throwing with. There's quite a variety out there.
I miss that thwap, thwap, thwap sound of the brushing with the old corn brooms. That was what curling was, kid, that sound.
I don't miss the blisters from it.
But yeah, it would have been a lot more effort, I guess, had to go into that, eh?
Yeah, you could tell how hard the guys are working, though, by the noise coming off that. The amount of straw flying around, it was his wonder there was as good a games as there was, because there must have been a lot of picking going on.
Well, that's the other thing, is that must have wreaked havoc on a lot of shots, especially when you had to throw like really quiet draw weight.
Yeah.
Dennis Masson now coming right down the center line here.
I can still remember the ice maker at home. He was cleaning all the sheets after a bounce wheel, and he said there was enough straw in there to go home and feed his cows.
Yeah, it is definitely the game has definitely evolved, no doubt about it. Certainly with rules and strategy, but also with the equipment as well. I guess the one thing that's remained fairly consistent, though, would be the rocks.
Yes,
not a whole lot of
rocks,
change to those.
They haven't changed that. They are doing a few different things with them. They're sharpening and sandpapering them, but they're still made of granite.
Nunavut trying to get something going here to score some points going into the fourth end break. They blanked the third to maintain the hammer 4. Northwest Territories. Brian Kelm with his shot, and it'll sit right there just above the tee line in the 4.
It looks like he's just trying to play a nice simple end just to kind of get his under him again, because he could be freezing and bumping a little bit just to keep rocks in play, but looks like he's just wanting to keep her clean and regroup again. Got no guards in place, so it's pretty hard to hide.
So one comes down, peels it away. So if you're Edmund Saddleberger, do you look at blanking again in 4?
Well, there's a chance that he's only going to get 1 here, because there's no chance of really getting 2. So yeah, he's probably going to look at a blank, and 4-0 after 4. That's not the end of the world.
Well, no, and that's the thing. I mean, the way the game is configured now, with the changes that have certainly opened up the offensive side of things, it's not out of the question to see 3 or 4 points put up in an end. We actually had a game earlier, the BC game that we did, BC and Alberta, at 3. I mean, we've seen steals of 4 and 5.
Oh, it's unbelievable. I saw the Manitoba men's team playing, and they were down 5 after 6, and they stole 5 and 1 in the extra end to win. Like it was remarkable. Just the way they set it up and made it happen.
And this one will come to rest halfway between the top 8 and 4. Yeah, I mean, once upon a time, the way the game was, if you were really adept at peeling, a la a Pat Ryan, you could put a point or 2 on the board, ride it out.
Oh,
hard to do that these days.
Yeah, before free guard zone, I remember playing games where whoever won the toss usually won the game. You had the hammer at the start there, and you could just peel, and you'd see low-scoring games, 1-0, 2-0. This was pretty boring. Thank goodness they changed it, because this is a way better. This is a lot more entertaining and gets everybody into the game.
Well, they're trying to open up scoring in the NHL. Maybe they should consult with the organizers of Canadian Curling or the World Curling Organization. Get some tips on what to do to open up offense, because it certainly has opened up, and we've seen like I said, we've seen 4 and 5 enders put up, and when I say 4 and 5 enders, not always with hammer, 4 and 5 enders of steals.
Absolutely, yes. And the free guard zone has brought the front end into, with their shots, they're so crucial now. You're setting up the end, and before it was, you were just going to throw some high hard ones, and now there's a lot of finesse.
Well, and that's what Michelle Lang and I were talking about earlier on the BC Alberta men's game, was that now, not that you didn't have to be a good curler at the front end, but you could maybe get away with being a little lead, but now your curling foursome 1 through 4 has got to be able to make takeout shots, but also finesse shots.
Absolutely, yeah. Those first 2 guards, they just start the whole end.
So we see Northwest Territories taking out that Nunavut stone. So now Saddleberger again has the choice before him. Try and take the single point and then give the hammer back to the Northwest Territories, come out of the 4th end break, or blank back to back and take your chances down 4 and regroup and come out in the 5th end with the hammer. Certainly looks like he's looking to peel this here and run the shooter out. Well, I'm not sure if that's what he wanted to do. He hits and he rolls right in toward the center. So a single point on the board. Now, again, my initial thought, I thought he was coming down to peel that out and roll the shooter out in blank, but he ends up taking
he wanted to also, yeah. But he does have that off his back. He's on the board. That's always a good feeling, too.
Well, it is indeed. So after 4 ends of play, Northwest Territories, on the strength of 2 steals in the first 2 ends, lead Nunavut by a score of 4-1. We'll step aside. You're watching the 2016 Everest Canadian Senior Curling Championship live and exclusively on Bell Alliance TV1. 5th end action right around the corner.
Welcome to the UNESCO Southwest Nova Biosphere Reserve, the 2nd largest biosphere reserve in Canada. Nestled in the southwest part of Nova Scotia, the Biosphere Reserve encompasses nearly 1/4 of the province. That's 1.5 million hectares. The area is rich in natural and cultural diversity. Here you can our deep-rooted cultures of the Mi'kmaq, the Acadian, Loyalists, and the Scottish. Referred to as Gespequick by the Mi'kmaq people, this is the place where the flowing waters of lakes and rivers meet the ocean. Our UNESCO biosphere consists of Kejimkujik National Park and National Site of Canada, the Tobeatic Wilderness Area, and surrounding picturesque communities within the 5 municipal counties that form our zone of cooperation. We are home to the highest diversity of plants, reptiles, and amphibians east of Ontario. The stories of our Mi'kmaq ancestors are conveyed here through petroglyphs. We have the largest collection of petroglyphs in eastern North America. With a coastline etched, nourished, and shaped by the sea, the biosphere is greeted by the Atlantic Ocean with sweeping, surfy sand beaches and the powerful tidal surge of the Bay of Fundy, home to the highest tides, rises and falls some 50 feet twice daily, boasting a bounty of sea life and sea vegetables. For generations, we have called this land home. We have fished, farmed, harvested, and gathered, while appreciating our unique traditional way of life, where man and nature interact sustainably. Come visit, sample, and experience. Embark on an ocean adventure in search of plankton and whales. Assist Mother Nature in caring for her species at risk. Retrace the footsteps of our Mi'kmaq people, or explore and savor the biosphere by paddle or on foot. Find yourself connecting to our unique cultural and physical landscapes, our home. As our guest, let us guide you through our UNESCO Southwest Nova Biosphere Reserve, and you'll soon realize why UNESCO designated this part of Nova Scotia as one of the world's biosphere reserves. The UNESCO Southwest Nova Biosphere Reserve has an adventure waiting. All it needs is you.
Of the fish and game that were left by you.
Back with you here, fifth end action. Northwest Territories and Nunavut in this seeding pool on the men's side. Both teams looking for their first victory. So far, it's been a good first four ends for the Northwest Territories. They stole two in the first, stole two more in the second. Nunavut and Ed South taking the third and then scoring one in the fourth. So the fourth end break has been completed, and it's 4-1 Northwest Territories over Nunavut. Scott Squires alongside Murray Skaman bringing you the action here. And over on our game sheet D, Jim Nix bringing you the action, New Brunswick and Northern Ontario. So we'll start things off here.
Lloyd Kendall's first rock was hogged. That's usually a round in the barn. I bet you they're going to hold him to that.
You know, it would appear the more time I spend around curling, it seems that there's a lot of things that have a beer riding on it.
Well, it makes it a lot easier to discuss any boo-boos later or earlier on. And they're going to try and get this end started here, get some guards up and get some stuff in play here. And he's after that, you know, after you hog a rock, it's tough. Good. And you know you got to put a little more on it, and you step it up a bit, and next thing you know you're in the house just like you did. And now we're going to be back to an open end again.
Northwest Territories throwing the red rocks, Nunavut throwing yellow. Fifth end action here in this men's seeding pool game. Again, they've gone through the first portion, round robin. It ended last night. And now they're into playoff championship pool as well as seeding pool. And in both seeding pool and championship pool, the records from the round robin, first 3 days, carry over into the second portion, which began this morning.
So there was a miss there on a wide open hit, and now they get a chance to throw up a guard and maybe get something going here.
So
well, that is a fancy slider there. He's got a little rubber pad on the side to clean his rock with even. Wow.
Just when you think they can't come up with something else or improve on something, somebody will think of something.
Yeah.
We'll see how they get along. They've got the first long guard out there, and now they've got their tight guard out there. It's a great start for Lee Joe Vauteur. Great shots. Really.
So Nunavut at this point
shots.
in the fifth end. You'd think they're just going to maybe really kind of put the pedal to the metal and go for it here. These 8-end draws, the 8th end comes up on you pretty quick, and you run out of time to make a move. And being down by 3, no time like the present to try and get something going. However, should keep in mind that the Northwest Territories do have the hammer here in this end.
They're kind of lined up for a double here. We'll see how he makes out. Looks like he's got lots of weight. They're going to try and hold her straight here. Oh, and he made his double. It's a very good shot.
That is a pretty good shot. So Northwest Territories, now the only 2 rocks in play. You see him right there. Saddleberger trying to get some momentum going here, but Glenn Hootie in his rink not having any of it. Chris West and all the folks from Nunavut have friends and family and colleagues back home, up and around Iqaluit.
Whoops.
And West, unfortunate there as he misses the shot on that Northwest Territories rock in the 4-foot. And again, you know, these misses that you see, it's you know, a terrible mistake by the person throwing it. It's so fine. You know, it's your weight coming out of the hack. It's your angle that you throw it at. It's how much curl you put on it. You know, it's not as easy as it looks. And misses like that, it's, you know, really just a small margin of error that can cause a complete miss like you just saw from Chris West.
It's very easy to miss like that. You slide out crooked to the broom, and then you have to throw back at it, and it changes the angle, everything, and it's tough for the skip to read for his next shot, and it's you really got to slide out clean and square.
So Saddleberger will settle in and ask for his front end to deliver here and remove some of these Northwest Territory rocks. Dennis Masson now will throw.
These guys need some of the rocks on the ladies' sheet. They're down to skip rocks, and they've got every rock in play, I think.
Masson right on the nose. Dennis Masson works for the Nunavut Power Corporation and is a heavy-duty diesel mechanic. In curling since he's 25 years of age and has a lot of experience on the national level. Has played in a couple of once upon a time Dominion, now the Travelers Canadian Club Championships. He's played in some Canadian Mixed and, of course, playing here at the Seniors. And again, it's pretty much the same story up and down the lineups of all of these teams on the men's and women's side. Lots of curling experience. So Northwest Territories, as they've done pardon me, through most of this game, calmly executing their game plan and taking out any Nunavut threat that might be in play. And now, here you see it, we're getting down to the last few rocks of this end. And again, nothing yellow in sight. 3 Northwest Territory stones there. I guess the only good news is that there's no guards up in front to protect those. They're fairly open. And is there a chance here for a double, or is that angle just a little too severe?
Well, that's a pretty sharp angle. I think he's kind of wanting to just hit that and roll over on top of the other one and use that red for some backing and try to get something going here. But it's a tough shot.
So Masson with his second here. In this 5th end, and he'll hit and stick right there.
He got a double, not the one he was thinking about. I don't
Well,
think.
yeah, that's not the double I was talking about
No,
either.
But it is nice to get that one out of the way because that can be a dirty jam.
Now, is that the same as if I'm playing pool and I just wildly hit the cue ball and end up knocking 3 balls in, and your buddy looks at you and go, "You didn't call that," and I go, "What do you mean? That's exactly what I planned." Is that going to be Dennis Masson's answer?
Well, it would be nice to take a cut like that out for doing something like that, that's for sure.
It works out, whether Masson meant to do it or not. It certainly works out in the favor of Nunavut, and they could use a little break here.
They usually just call that Plan B.
So Northwest Territories just come down and peel out that yellow from Nunavut. And again, a pretty clean end here now. Would this be a case now where Glenn Hootie with the hammer might want to blank and carry over the hammer into the next end?
Sure, he wouldn't mind doing that at all. Yep.
Get caught in between on that one. Get the rule either way. Kind of the story of the day for New Brunswick.
So Saddleberger will look to remove this
They need to get the
Territories red. Saddleberger, a lefty. You don't see a whole lot of left-handed throwers.
Those lefties come in pretty handy. They can make rocks swoop usually from there. But they usually aren't throwing when you need them.
So he hits and sticks, and now I guess Saddleberger could hope for a miss, which is not out of the realm of possibility. It can happen. Sometimes it's like in bowling when you've got that one pin and you think it's going to be an easy one, and you think you got it lined up, and you release the ball and it sails by the pin and you walk back with your head hung in shame. So Glenn Hootie, you would think that he would more than likely want to take the blank here and carry the 3-point lead over into the sixth end, an even numbered end with the hammer. So Glenn Hootie settles in.
They're on her hard early. They're trying to hold it straight. Could be a miss coming up.
On its way. And he
That
just
was a nice shot.
does get a bit of it. A nice shot indeed, but you said it there for a minute. It was
Yeah, they
half
were
a second of doubt.
working that hard to hold it.
So that's one of those cases where sweeping really had an impact on the shot. Northwest Territories blank the fifth end. They'll carry the hammer over into six. Want to thank some of the sponsors for this Everest Canadian Curling Club Championship.
probably Gordon Allen will be the outturn. He's going to be outturn. It'd be his injury, but
So I jumped the gun. I thought they were down to their final rocks. So that was only the first of the rocks.
tough for New Brunswick to avoid getting
That caught us both off guard.
Yeah.
I thought we were done there.
I was hurrying way too hard on that end. Thought
Yeah.
they were done. I think I caught our director Chuck off guard as well. He's like, "What are you talking about, guys? Another rock to come here."
Oh, he's going to make him work for that.
You can see there a little chuckle going through all of the curlers.
They must have told him what happened to us. That's a dirty biter, that one.
We're going to work hard to try to bury this now. Looks like they're going to be able to do that.
So Hootie will settle in,
Any throw out a shot.
and I can now say with confidence,
This is the final round.
this is the final rock
Outturn hit and roll it.
of this fifth end.
Wouldn't be a bad result if we make it. This is probably a little bit of a better call.
Hootie
It's
out of the hack,
opportunity
and his final throw for
better than
the Territory's final rock, fifth end. It's on its way.
maybe
Just
So
the
he
one
can
brush
roll
leaning
out.
over.
probably almost full forward. Very
And very similar to the one prior. He uses it thin, but does get enough of it to peel it out, and the shooter rolls out as well. So, as I was saying moments ago, that's a blank end for Glenn Hootie and the Northwest Territories. So they will take the hammer into six and maintain their 4-1 lead. And that's a pretty smart move by Hootie. Conventional curling thinking tells you that having the hammer in the even-numbered ends is favorable. So if things played out to a regular path, I guess, Northwest Territories would get a point here, give the hammer to Newton. point, you give the hammer back to the Northwest Territories in the final end. Now, we certainly know that the script can play out a lot differently, but again, ideally, you like to have the hammer in even numbered ends. So just a couple of ends left to go here. Sixth end action, a close between the Northwest Territories and Nunavut.
Just looking over at the ladies sheet that we can see from up here, it's a different story. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 10 rocks in the house. Unbelievable.
That is a boatload of traffic.
Is
Holy.
there ever.
Give you an update on some scores here now in just a moment. I've just got to refresh my scoreboard from curling.ca. While we're doing that, to thank some of the sponsors of the 2016 Everest Canadian Senior Curling Championship. Platinum sponsors, the town of Digby, Municipality of the District of Digby, Province of Nova Scotia, Department of Health and Wellness, Bell Canada, and ACOA, the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency. Thank you to those sponsors on behalf of Digby Area Recreation Commission. So just updating some scores, of course, here on our feature game on Sheet B. 4-1, Northwest Territories leading on Sheet D, our other feature game. It's 5-1 now for Northern Ontario over New Brunswick. Play there in the fifth end. Play in the fourth end, the Yukon. And I just lost my feed, so I'll give you that update in just a second.
So it looks like we're going to get some rocks in play here. They threw up a guard. Territories came around behind it, and now we've got a yellow sitting right on the button.
And as we see that yellow rock sit there, I will now tell you that Yukon trails Quebec by a score of 6-1 and play in the fifth end there. And after this shot, we'll update some of the women's scores. As scoreboard watching becomes a little more important. This is the 14th draw of this event, day 4. And he brings that one in, and we're seeing, as you mentioned, Murray seeing a few more rocks in play here now. 3 rocks in the house, a guard up high belonging to Nunavut. And updating some women's scores for you. Alberta and PEI tied at 2 in the fifth end. Northern Ontario leading Manitoba 4-3 in the fifth. And that tight game between Newfoundland and Labrador and Saskatchewan, it is 5-4, Newfoundland and Labrador leading. Play there in the fifth end as well. So lots of action taking place here.
So Chris West just delivered a rock. He's coming down. He's going to try and the house, but it appears to be just a little bit heavy.
Yeah, that's going to go through. And that's, pardon me, that's a couple of times we've seen Chris have an issue with his weight. And that's one of those things as well. If you're issue getting your weight down, you know, that can stick in the back of your head. When you've got one of those shots where you just need to pull a certain weight out of the hack, it can play on your mind, and you can just not be able to nail it down.
It can be tough. I know myself, I used to have a lot of trouble with what I call 21-second ice, and I could just not throw that draw weight. And you give me tougher ice or keener ice, and it wasn't a problem, but that one weight of ice was just a problem for me, and maybe this is the weight that's bothering Chris.
So there you see the situation. Just the one guard up high, and then in the house we've got a couple of red territory stones and one belonging to Nunavut. 4-1's the score here. Sixth end action. Northwest Territories blanking of the last end, so they have the hammer here in 6. West now hoping for a better result on this one. And a much better result indeed, as he gets right on top of those 2 Northwest Territories, doubles them out of play, and his shooter sticks around. So I'm sure Chris will feel a little better about that delivery.
Yeah, Chris is going to like that. He split the house and everything. That was a pretty nice shot. We just had to scold him a little bit about his draw weight, and he stepped up to the plate.
He sure did.
And Glenn just cleaned up that center guard to try and open things up so he can get at these rocks. So one was kind of tucked in behind it. So imagine there's going to be some guards put up now to try and protect these. Oh, he's going to bump it back. Made a liar of me.
Well, that's the other thing, there's been several instances where on both sheets all week long where, it almost seems that you are pretty sure you know what shot they're going to make, and then they do something, I don't want to say completely different, but they do, another shot altogether.
And maybe he's having trouble icing to get a guard in that spot. Like, there could be a lot of things that are determining what he's calling.
Pretty quiet weight thrown here. You see West and Kendall. We'll bring it down, and he just brings it into the ring. So, interesting decision. I kind of thought they were going to do what you said, was to put a guard up and maybe bring a little protection in, but they brings, and I think there might be an opportunity here. I mean, would you go for a double here on this one?
Yeah, I imagine he's going to give it a go. He's up a few points, so he can take a few chances like that.
Well, he doesn't get the double. He missed that. If he was going for it, he missed that Nunavut yellow at the very top there. He does hit one, and the shooter rolls over. And I guess the positive news for Territories is the shooter ends up rolling over and sits shot rock.
A nice little roll to the 4-foot would be nice here.
Dennis Masson watches on with as his rock comes down onto the red, chips off his own yellow, and rolls out of play. So just the 2 Nunavut Yellowstones sitting there. Northwest Territories do have the hammer here in this 6th end. This game part of the men's seeding pool, which of course will go toward determining what the seedings are for these provincial teams at next year's Canadian Senior Curling Championship. Kelm watches again his second throw here. Takes out that one Nunavut yellow. Shooter rolls out, so just the one rock in play. No protection for it at all, and we're down getting into skip stones here in this 6th end. So Settelberger looking to perhaps set things up here to try and get a steal. And
yeah, he's going to try and tuck that in behind that one sitting on the top of the house and hope for a miss. He looks pretty happy. I don't know what's going on down there.
yeah,
He must be joking around, having some fun.
Yeah.
That's great to see.
And that's, that's a theme that permeates throughout not only this Everest Canadian Senior Curling Championship and any of the other curling events I know that I've covered with Bell Alliant TV1, is that it's just that fun feeling, that camaraderie, that, win, lose, or otherwise, you're feeling good about it. You're enjoying yourself, representing your province or territory, wearing their colors, and it's a pretty neat event. Getting to travel to different areas of the country, see how diverse we are, and mix and mingle with folks from different areas of the country. One of the things I enjoy is talking to the different teams about where they live, what it's like, what they do for a living, things of that nature. So it's nice. It's a pretty wide, expansive country that we live in, and sometimes you feel a little separated from other parts of the country, especially when you're talking about the territories or western provinces, when you're here in eastern Canada and the Atlantic provinces. So it's kind of nice. Sitting here talking to you, Murray, about things back home in Manitoba, it kind of makes you feel a little bit closer to the rest of the country, and that's one of the nice overriding themes at an event like this.
Well, it's a great sport. You see these people, they're all visiting afterwards, and like they're all friends. They shake hands afterwards, shake hands before they. It's a great game. When I used to play hockey, when somebody beat me on the hockey ice, I was mad at them for 2 weeks afterwards. But this, you get over it, and because there's another game coming, and you go and try and pry a little information out from everybody to see what's working. And it's a great game. There's so much strategy. It really keeps your mind working.
It does, and you're absolutely right. It's a real social game. I mean, it's not uncommon to see two teams that just fought really hard, and maybe one team, suffered a really difficult defeat. But more often than not, you'll see them in the patch afterwards, sitting down, sharing a laugh and a beverage. And that's a lot of fun. That's nice.
Yep.
So Saddleberger here, shaping up not too bad. 2 rocks left to go. Saddleberger will throw his final skip stone for Nunavut, and then it'll turn over to Hootie. So if you're Nunavut now, do you want to try and maybe split the rings a little and maybe force a draw weight from Hootie?
Well, he might try and tuck one in behind, but either way is a good plan. Just try to avoid a double. Try and force him to take one. And it looks like he's trying to draw into probably 4 foot and make Glenn take a shot at it. Oh, but it's hanging out. Oh, and he's making a liar out of me. It stayed wide. Actually, he lost the turn on the handle.
Yeah, it did.
Maybe
no turn at
a
all.
Little bit there.
Like that's almost like a knuckleball. His baseball term.
Yeah.
That didn't that handle had no spin at all toward the end.
Guys would like to be able to throw that on purpose. That's a tough one to do. But it makes you mad when it happens. You don't want it to.
So just to that point, I mean, maybe we'll get to it after this throw because this is the final rock here. But maybe I'll pick up on that the point about the turn of the handle and then the spin of the rock and how it affects the throw. But first things first, we'll await this final rock here from Glenn Hootie. We are in the 6th end. It's 4-1 for the Northwest Territories, as you see. And Hootie here, we take the point. We kind of talked about that basic play out. You take the point, give the hammer to your opponent in 7. They get a point. You take the hammer in 8, which is why it's typically an advantage to have the hammer in even numbered ends. So Hootie, little directional brushing going here.
Oh, and he's going to get, but he is going to get shot rocked.
He does, and that was dangerous as that started to roll. It may have rolled too far with that other Nunavut stone lingering, but he does take the single point, so kind of playing out the script in terms of the even end scenario. So 5-1 Northwest Territories lead going into the 7th end. Ed Saddleberger and Nunavut will have the hammer. But just talking about that, we saw that rock from Saddleberger, and you talked about the handle stop spinning. All things being equal, you settle into the hack and you throw a rock straight down the center line. What's the different effect on that shot if you've got that natural spin that you'll see a thrower put on it, whereas if it just something happens and it ends up not spinning and going straight? What's the basic effect that the spin has in terms of the overall effect on the shot?
Well, the turn determines on how far it's going to draw one way or another, and this is a little tricky too. You got to make sure that you have lots of rotation on the rocks, or they'll run straight on you. And when you go back over to the curling ice, you can put a little less rotation on it. But out here, you have to keep your rotation to make sure that it'll maintain that. And I would the pebble and the frost in this arena that you have to have that extra turn just to get things moving.
And thank you for mentioning the pebble and the ice, because I know that I wanted to pick up on a thought that you had earlier about the pebbling and the scraping that they do here, and it made me think of what I saw between the first draw this morning and this one. They have this machine that comes out. It almost looks like a big snow blower, but it's got like a long blade on it, and they bring it out and they actually scrape. So when you see them bringing it up the ice, there's almost like enough snow that you'd almost see like a Zamboni at a hockey rink dump. And then with like a regular corn house broom sweeping along the edges. So my point is that just how integral is it to make sure that you've got the proper clean scrape, cleaning out the edges, doing all that, and how much do the curlers check on that during their warm-up?
Well, these ice makers, they're remarkable with these new ice machines now. Like I said before, they're throwing a pebble in there to draw the frost out, and then they bring out their big scraper, and they'll scrape that, and they make that sheet absolutely perfectly flat. Like, it's got to be perfect, or you get runs in the ice, and once they get it flattened out the way they want it, then another layer of pebble on there, and they can set that machine so close so that it just knocks the top of the pebble off, so that it is keen for the first rock. Otherwise, you have to wear that pebble down a little bit to make the ice keen. They've got this right down to a science. It's unbelievable what they've done in the last 10, 20 years.
And we see this shot here coming from Lloyd Kendall. Early stages of the seventh end. 5-1 the score. Northwest Territories leading Nunavut in this seeding pool game. Both these teams looking for their first victory. And maybe for the casual viewer and somebody that's maybe tuning into curling for one of the first times, you talk about pebble, you see the ice makers out here, and you'll actually see a guy with a canister on his back filled with water, and he's got this thing like a little wand. And you'll see him, and I actually tweeted out and sent out a video on Instagram a couple of days ago of one of the ice makers doing it. But it literally does put little droplets of ice, so that if you run your hand over of a curling sheet of ice, it actually has like little bumps. And that's your pebble, right?
That's right. That's it's a little bump of frozen water. And those ice makers have a different head to go on the end of that hose, and for different conditions they'll have one with different size holes in it. And like I said, they've got it down to a science. They'll have coffee perk the water at the perfect temperature to put in that backpack that they're pebbling with, so that it makes absolutely the right pebble. It's remarkable what they can do.
It really is an exact science. There's no doubt about it. You may watch and just take it for granted. Oh, well, there's the ice. It's got some pretty colors and rings there, and it's got logos painted on the ice, and away we go. You see the ice makers almost immediately after a draw comes to a close. They are out there prepping for the next draw.
Yeah, and that's for sure. And you'll notice in the middle of the ice that there's some cords and stuff sitting there, and they're keeping track of the air temperature, the humidity, ice temperature. Like, they've got a lot to keep track of, and that's all hooked to one of their laptops, and they're on top of this all the time, all night. The one ice maker told me they were up since 5 o'clock this morning, and they've been scraping and pebbling, trying to get this perfect for each event.
Well, it's funny. I went over and to a couple of the guys over on the other side in the actual curling club ice, and I just went in for a minute. And that's actually when I took the video of the pebbling being done. And I looked over at the wall, and there was a thermometer there, and it didn't even hit me at first. I go, 60 degrees. That seems a little warm. And he goes, no. He goes, that's the humidity. That's where he goes, it's actually 2.7 degrees in here right now. I go, that makes more sense.
Yes.
But you're absolutely right. They're tracking all of these different things to get just the right ice condition.
And they've brought some ice makers in from all over the place, and it's almost like a little competition out there as to little things that they learn and share with one another. And there's one of the scrapers that we can see beside the scoreboard at the back, that orange thing with the wheels there. That's a very expensive toy. That's probably a $10,000 toy. It might even be more than that. They're a lot of money.
Wow.
So maybe we could take that home and maybe clean our driveway with that, eh?
Well, I tell you what, I think my daughter would love that. She'd probably be out there with some things from the cupboard, sliding them down the driveway. So a nice shot there as Nunavut takes care of that one red. territory stone, and then it gets the good little roll over. We are in the 7th end here. Nunavut under the really got to make something happen here with the hammer, but this end a little bit too clean for the liking of Nunavut, I'm sure, right now in terms of rocks in play, and that kind of plays into the hands of what the Northwest Territories wants to do with a 4-point lead and getting down to the last couple of ends. Brian Keln with his delivery here. Brian is a program manager with the City of Yellowknife, as mentioned, originally from Regina, Saskatchewan, and does a lot of coaching. And is coached at the Canadian Junior Championships as well as the Scotties and the Winter Games. And he's also competed at the Brier with the Northwest Territories and has competed at a Canadian Mixed Championship as well as at the Seniors. So a nice resume there for the vice on this Northwest Territories team, Brian Kelm. Dennis Masson now with his throw. And it's getting to that point now where Nunavut's starting to run out of rocks.
Those first 2 enders they got in the first and second end there. Some have just got them behind the 8 ball, and they just haven't been able to get back into this game.
Well, you know what? And that's a really good point. You know, if you take away those first 2 ends, since the 3rd end, this is a 1-1 game.
Yeah, it's been an even game back and forth here. It's just that steal of 2 hurt them.
So Brian Kelm with the delivery here. Klakowiak, Jan McDonald on the sweep. And on the nose, and there's 1 less yellow to help the cause of Nunavut. Nunavut needs yellow in play, and they need a bunch.
He's going to try this hit and roll and kind of use that outside one as a catcher for him.
So last rock here for Dennis Masson. So Dennis has the throw away, and the dynamic Newfoundland and Labrador duo of Kendall and West brushing it. Now they back away, and then you get the roll over. Just trying to nestle it up there, maybe use that red rock to stop it, but it just misses, and I think you could hear the groan coming from Saddleberger up here.
Yeah, he needed that one.
Yeah, he did, and it just slid by, so this now very much playing into the hands of Glenn Hootie as we're into skip stones here in this 7th end. Now, if you're Hootie, do you just keep it clean and peel that out and leave it open? Or do you maybe try and put something in there and add a little insult to injury?
He's probably going to put a little more pressure on him here. You said that Glenn Hootie was from Yorkton, Saskatchewan.
Yorkton, Saskatchewan, indeed.
There's some Hooties just north of Yorkton. They're very large farmers and also have a fertilizer business. This fella might be related to them.
Maybe a good chance, kind of like my surname Squires from Newfoundland and Labrador. I probably have a lot more relatives that are Squires in Newfoundland than I'm even aware of. So
this pretty much forces them to take one.
So Saddleberger now will make his way down. Final couple of throws here for Ed in this 7th end. And again, you know, you're absolutely right. You nailed it, Murray. That steal of 2 early on has been the real difference maker, because again, from the 3rd end on, it's been tight. There's been some blanks, and it's been a 1-1 game. You know, sometimes it's just that one end, and it happened earlier with BC and Alberta. There was that one end where BC scored.
That's
Other
right.
than that, it was pretty much even up.
That was an amazing draw to watch. There was 3 really good games to watch, and It's hard to watch 3 games at once out there. You're missing more shots than what you're seeing.
Well, and that's the other thing, we're very glad to be able to provide coverage of this around the world via Bell Alliant TV1 and the Bell Alliant network. However, if you're anywhere near the Digby area, come on out to the Digby Arena and just soak up this atmosphere. Watch this. I mean, I know it's Canadian, but this is world-class curling. I mean, these curlers down the line, for the most part, most of them have competed at either a national or international level, and just some amazing curling here. And you talked about it, Murray, in that early morning draw, there were some very exciting games, some fantastic shots made, and this is great curling. So again, if you're in the Digby area and you can make it in the next couple of days, especially on Saturday for the championship games and the Everest Furby Pro-Am, come on down to the Digby Arena. It's a lot of fun. Right on that, so now that absolutely puts Saddleberger as he faces 3 Northwest Territory stones. He is forced here to take a point, and that plays right into the hands. That's kind of that very base strategy we talked about earlier on when the Northwest Territories blanked that end to take the hammer into 6. They blanked 5 to take the hammer in the even end, and if it works out here that Saddleberger scores a point, well, that's the basic strategy, right? Northwest Territories blanked 5 to take the hammer in 6. They scored a point, gave the hammer back to Nunavut. If Nunavut scores a point, hammer goes back to the Territories in the 8th and final end. That's kind of the very basic script. Final shot here. Saddleberger needs to hit and stick around, or we may see a handshake now.
That's looking like handshakes to me.
And the glove comes off, the hand extended. And there it is, the 2 northern teams, Northwest Territories and Nunavut, shaking hands, and Northwest Territories getting their first victory. That is going to make them feel very good. And again, full marks to them. They came out strong, scored 2 in the first, and then 2 in the second. Back-to-back steals of 2, and truly, as you see, a 4-point difference, or a 5-point difference finally with the single point in the end, but really those 4 points that the Northwest Territories scored in the first 2 ends, the real difference. And Ed Saddleberger and his Nunavut side, they played it close. They kept it in the end just a little too much, and they actually credit 2 points. Well, they've got a 7 up there. It still should be, well, regardless. It's a victory for the Northwest Territories.
You can see the score in the next sheet. Kathy King and Prince Edward Islands are having a great game. 4.
Yeah, that's a tight one going over there. And we've been talking about that one just a little bit. We knew that was going to be an epic matchup between those 2 teams.
There's going to be some outstanding games coming up here in the next day or so.
No question about it. Well, our final score here, the Northwest Territories in the men's seeding pool get their first victory, a 7-1 final over Nunavut. We'll step aside. We'll be back with you at 4 o'clock. We'll have Nunavut versus Yukon women's seeding pool action on Sheet B, and on Sheet D, we'll have men's championship pool action, BC taking on Saskatchewan. Until then, on behalf of Murray Skaman and our Bell and Line TV1 crew, including Scott McRae, Chuck Calder with 45 North, I'm Scott Squires. Thanks for watching. You've been listening and watching the 2016 Everest Canadian Senior Curling Championships. We'll be back at the Atlantic.